Hello, good afternoon. Happy Friday, Penguins fans. October 14th as we end the week here with this final episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. For today's episode, we're going to get into a full preview of the game against Tampa Bay. I'm coming to you live just outside of Pittsburgh right now. Actually, obviously, I'm not in my room and not back in Richmond. I arrived in Pittsburgh earlier today. I'm just easy drive in. It's always so beautiful. You come in from the turnpike, you get on 376 or the Parkway, as all the yinzers call it, and you come in, you go through the Squirrel Hill Tunnel, which is always backed up, come out, do a little turn, and then you see the skyline. It's like nothing beats that. It's just a pure like welcome home kind of moment. So that was really awesome. But again, for today's episode, we're going to do a full preview of the game against Tampa Bay, look at how successful the Penguins have been against the Lightning the last few years, look at who could play a big role in this game, look at the Lightning lines coming into this one, and how the Penguins may not see one of Tampa Bay's best players coming into this one. And I'll also have a couple of scoops regarding the reverse retro jersey for the Penguins. I've been kind of teasing at it on my Twitter account because there's been some stuff that's being reported from different outlets to give you all the scoop on that a little later on in today's episode. So that's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at _Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. It has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. So let's jump right into it. So the Penguins will try to get to 2-0-0 on the season on Saturday night against Tampa Bay. I've said this all week, said this honestly for the last week. So excited to be back in Pittsburgh for this game. It's my first one since before COVID hit. I believe the last one I went to was 2019, right before New Year's. I was dating someone else at the time. And that was the game. Funny enough, they played the Ottawa Senators, and boom, that's when Jake Gensel's collarbone went out. He scored the goal, went crashing into the boards, saw him get up. He's hunched over with his collarbone. I'm like, once I saw that, I'm like, okay, that looks like a serious injury. Nice goal, but I'm like, he's probably going to be out for a while. Sure enough, he was out for a while because the whole league was out for a long time with the COVID shutdown and all that. So first time in basically 3 years that I'll be back at PPG Paints Arena. I am so stoked to be coming, to just watch this team play a really good Tampa Bay team. And let's get into it. I know the Lightning looked really bad against the Rangers on opening night, at least in North America. There was a couple games in Europe a few days before. I believe the Sharks and the Predators played 2 games. And funny enough, I think a lot of people, myself included, did not even know that the regular season started during the weekend. I thought it was just a preseason game. Nope. The regular season started with those 2 Predators-Sharks games. The Predators won both games, but it's just like, okay, you can play those games in Europe, but those should not be the first 2 games of your season. Anyways, don't want to get off track here. As for the Lightning, they lost that game 3-1 to the New York Rangers at 5v5. They got out attempted 39-28. They only had 41% of the shot attempts. At 5v5, they made no goals for, 1 goals against, so they gave up a couple power play goals. Only 39% of the expected goals at 5v5, 42% of the scoring chances, 47% of the high danger chances. Really bad performance from Tampa Bay. It was honestly similar to how they played against the Penguins last year on opening night. I remember the Penguins come into that very shorthanded. No Crosby, no Malkin. A couple other regulars were out due to COVID and all that stuff. But Penguins were like, you know what? Next man up. And they go down there and blitz them. What was it, 6-2? If I'm not mistaken. And John Cooper even said after the game, we don't care that Crosby and Malkin were out. We got our butts whooped. And, that's basically what happened against the Rangers as well. That game would have been a lot worse had Andrei Vasilevsky not been in net. And he was making save after save after save. But luckily for the Penguins, it looks like they will not be seeing him on Saturday. Tonight, funny enough, so I'm recording this at about 6:20 p.m. Eastern time. Lightning about to play in the next 40 minutes to an hour. They're playing the Columbus Blue Jackets in Columbus tonight. And Andrei Vasilevsky was the first goalie off the ice. He is the confirmed starter for the game. So John Cooper is not going to start Brian Elliott against a lesser team like the Blue Jackets. He's going to go for Vasilevsky. And then it looks like Brian Elliott, usually one of the not so good backups in the NHL, he will be going up against the Penguins on Saturday. That's very good news for them. Vasilevsky, one of the two best goaltenders overall. I personally have him as the best goaltender on the planet, right behind, a little bit above Igor Shesterkin. But, you can honestly take either one at this point. It's Brian Elliott just not, it obviously doesn't have like that same kind of spark, I guess, as, playing Andrei Vasilevsky in Pittsburgh. Vasilevsky, he played all 3 games against the Penguins last year, played really well in those games as well, making sure, of course, I'm recording on my Mac, and that's just like the last thing I want to hear during my recording. Anyways, Vasilevsky played in all 3 games this year, and the Penguins, funny thing was, they won 2 of those 3 games, and the Penguins have played really well against the Lightning for the last several years. Going back their last 25 home games against them, 16-6-3. They're also 4-2-1 in their last 7 total games against them. In their last 27 games, the Penguins power play also 31.6% against the Tampa Bay. The last meeting the Penguins played against them, 5-1 victory. Evgeny Malkin played one of his best games of the season, had 3 points. Danton Heinen was spectacular against them last year, had 2 goals in 3 games. I believe Heinen actually had the opening night goal for the Penguins last season against Tampa Bay. Jake Gensel also had 3 points. Chris Letang had 3 points against the Lightning as well. That was a team that the Lightning, I screwed that up. I think a lot of Lightning fans were kind of a little scared of the Penguins last season just because Pittsburgh, they were giving them fits. They were out skating them, I think, in all 3 games. Honestly, we're finishing their chances. I think their defensive zone structure with their 1-2-2 was really frustrating John Cooper's team. And, I saw plenty of Lightning fans last year that were saying, hopefully we don't see this team in the playoffs because they definitely had our number at times. So, I'm not saying this is like a very favorable matchup for the Penguins, but I am saying that, the Penguins, they can play with these guys. And, I wouldn't be surprised if they do well against them again this season. As for the lines that you will see from the Lightning in this game, Brandon Hagel is on the top line with Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov. Nick Paul is with Steven Stamkos and Alex Killorn. Ross Colton with Vladislav Nemestikov and Corey Perry. And then Pierre-Edouard Bellemare and Patrick Maroon on the 4th line. Victor Hedman, Cal Foote on the top defensive pair. Mikhail Sergachev and Eric Chernak are on their defense. And then Fleury with Myers on the bottom pairing. Definitely, when you look at past Tampa Bay teams, I know they don't have that 3rd line, with Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow and Yanni Gord, and now another big loss that they had this offseason, no Andre Palat. He was one of their 3 to 4 best players in their last run to the final. I know they didn't three-peat, but when he was on the ice with Kucherov or Stamkos, he was doing everything, and the other 2 players were. But when that line was not on the ice, the Lightning really couldn't do much of anything, it felt like, in the playoffs. I was honestly kind of surprised that they got to the final when just having one really elite line. But, that's what elite goaltending does in Andrei Vasilevsky and the Penguins. It looks like it right now. They'll be pretty lucky to not see him in that game. So overall, I think this is a big measuring stick game for the Penguins. I know the Lightning did not look good against the Rangers. I assume they will look better tonight against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then I know they'll be playing on a back-to-back on Saturday, but I assume they will play a little bit better against the Penguins than they did against the Rangers. Penguins, they have some history on their side when it comes to these 2 teams playing. They have the head-to-head record and all that, but it's any given day for a reason in hockey. Another cool stat: the Penguins in their last 24 games last season, the Penguins were 14-7-3 against Atlantic Division teams. Another player to look out for. Actually, no, I'm going to save some of the players to look out for this game coming up in this next segment. But Penguins have always done really well against Atlantic Division teams. Again, 2-1 against Tampa Bay last season. I think they can definitely play with these guys. I mean, the game they lost against Tampa Bay last season, that was just a couple of weeks after the Penguins blew them out in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay comes out in Pittsburgh. They beat them by a few goals. I thought the Penguins played well in that game. That was the only home game in Pittsburgh that they played against the Lightning, but they didn't have enough oomph offensively. And you saw that, Vasilevsky also made some really nice saves. But that wraps up this first part of the preview for the game against Tampa Bay. Coming up in the next, we're going to look to some players to watch for this game, one of which had a great start to the season on Thursday night against the Arizona Coyotes. But before I get to that, BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of our sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest, easiest way to check out on all of your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. You can head to BetOnline or use your phone to learn more. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I'm back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. You want to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at @Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So let's look at some players that, could be key contributors in this game. And funny enough, one of them is Jason Zucker, who had an outstanding game against the Arizona Coyotes when he was on the ice with Malkin and Rust. They had 17 shot attempts for, 5 shot attempts against, scoring chances well over 70%, high danger chances, the same thing. He was electric on that line with Malkin and Rust, and he was firing a lot of shots from that left circle, about 20, 25 feet out. He was obviously had that really nice goal to make it 2-0 early on in the first period. He was a menace, and I'm really hoping the Penguins can get more out of him overall coming into this game. And, when you look at his stats against the Lightning, overall, he's played 16 games against the Lightning. In those games, 9 goals, 11 points, and he has a shooting percentage of 27%. 9 goals. Look, I looked this up. 9 goals on 33 shots. Yes, very unsustainable. Would love if he could do that overall, spread across like the league as a whole, have a 27% shooting percentage. I mean, that would just be hilarious. But I mean, it's actually crazy that in 16 games, he has a 27% shooting percentage. Yeah, small sample sizes, but he's played really well against them. And he also has 3 goals on 7 shots against Brian Elliott, funny enough. So again, who the Penguins are likely to see in that game. Jeff Carter, he's played a lot of games against the Lightning. He's played really well against them. 16 goals, 27 points in 38 career games against Tampa Bay. Here's a cool stat. This is courtesy of Penguins PR. Only 5 active players have more goals against the Lightning than Jeff Carter. So I could definitely see him having a big game against Tampa Bay. I like the third line for the most part against Arizona. I thought Carter was fine defensively. His skating looked good. If he can continue to get those kind of minutes throughout the season and Malkin and Crosby were able to stay healthy, I think you can see him do what he was doing in the first half of last season for the entirety of this season. I know I've said that I didn't like the trajectory that he was on because he kind of looked washed down the stretch last season. Part of that could be due to him just playing a lot more minutes during the first half just because he had to be this team's 2C. But if he remains that 3C for most of the season, hopefully, he'll still have his legs and maybe he'll be able to contribute even more offensively. That would be awesome. Penguins power play, if they are able to get some opportunities, look for that. That could be a big momentum swinger, I think, for the Penguins. Pittsburgh had a couple power play goals against the Coyotes. This is obviously a little bit different. Tampa Bay's penalty kill, usually well above league average every season. I believe last year it finished in the top 10 overall. Last season, they were 2 for 6 on the power. 2 for 6 against Arizona on Thursday night. Also, last season, they went 24-8-7 when scoring a power play goal. So when they score a power play goal, most games they get at least a point. So there's that. Obviously, Danton Heinen, he was really good against the Lightning last year, scored the first goal of the season against Tampa Bay, also had a couple of points against them. Sidney Crosby always has fun playing the Lightning. Brock McGinn, even, he had that great breakaway goal in that 5-1 game back in March, when he just came streaking down, had a beautiful shot that beat Vasilevsky clean. And, he usually can make those kind of saves. But nope, again, just came down and snapped that blocker side past him. Really nice job there. I'm really hoping that the fourth line especially can have better game. I talked about that on my Thursday episode. That was one of my negatives from the game against Arizona. I really only had 2 or 3 negatives anyway, but one of them was the fourth line, just because they were the only line on the team to get out attempted by the Coyotes. I just don't want them pinned down in the defensive zone a lot. I think Teddy Blueger's return is going to help a lot. He was back. He was at practice again on Friday, but he's still not participating in a full contact capacity. It looks like he is going to miss this game again for the Penguins. We'll have to see if he comes back next week, maybe the week after with the full Western Canada trip. But, it looks like right now he's not going to be playing in that game. Goaltending wise, at least for the Penguins, I would expect Tristan Jarry to start in this one. I mean, you're going up against the Tampa Bay Lightning here. I mean, if that's not called to start your number one netminder, then what the heck is at this point? So that basically wraps up the first 2 segments. We're diving deep into the Lightning, looking at their numbers, looking at the lines, looking at who could be big for the Penguins against them, while also seeing that history has been on their side against this team. But you know what? That honestly goes out the window when you step foot on the ice and you play this team. They have a lot of veteran experience. They're one of the best teams of the salary cap era. They have elite level players that can break open the game at will. Penguins will have to be on high alert for those players. Of course, I'm talking about Kucherov, Point, Stamkos, Hedman, those kind of guys. They still have some good, depth players. Brandon Hagel, Nick Paul's not bad, even though that contract extension, a little much. Pat Maroon has some experience. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare has some experience down there. Corey Perry's always a pain in the butt to play against. This game should be a lot of fun. As I said a few minutes ago, good measuring stick of going up against one of the best teams in the conference. I think the Penguins, they looked kind of bored against the Coyotes, especially in the second period. The game's 3-0 at that point. And I think a lot of the players probably thinking like, okay, can we go home? We're playing against an AHL team at this point. And, they were definitely outplayed for stretches during that period last night. I think, after like the halfway point of regulation, so like with less than 10 minutes to go, Arizona started to up their shot total. Part of that had to do with power plays and stuff, but they were taking it to the Penguins a little bit. But I think the Penguins were just kind of starting to get bored. And that was definitely true as well in the third period, where it was 3-1 and 4-1. I think they were just like, okay, kind of gliding around, but they just wanted the game to end. That's not going to be a problem against the Lightning. They're going to try to play a full 60 minutes. I don't think they're going to just start taking shifts off and gliding around and looking bored. I mean, this is the Tampa Bay Lightning here, people. So looking forward to that. That wraps up the full preview for this game. Coming in the final segment, I'm going to have a couple of small scoops for you all about the reverse retro jerseys, when those will be released, and what it looks like it's going to look like. So stick around for that coming up in this final segment. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at @RoboPenguin. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So definitely been some reverse retro stuff that's been going on the last couple of days. It was funny. I heard a couple of scoops. Actually, I heard some whispers from someone that I do trust, that works in the organization. And, he told this person told me that it looks like the release is going to be next week. Funny enough, a couple people did tweet at me saying like, yeah, it's looking like it's the 19th or the 20th. I did not know the exact date, but it looks like those have been the long rumored dates. All I was told, but it's coming next week. And, right now it's October 14th. The 20th is next Thursday. So that would line up with the scoop that I got on Thursday. And I was also told that it sounds like the gradient style for this jersey is not going to be returning. It sounds like it's going to be just kind of a black and, just a black and gold jersey. I may try to share my screen here for the YouTube people. Just let me see if I can do this. Well, actually, no, I might just, I'll probably just link it down. For my episode description for you all, I'm going to put the link to the tweet down there in both YouTube and whether you're listening on Apple and Spotify, you can go check it out. So it's not going to be like, the gray one that some of you may have seen on social media and stuff. It's going to be black with a lot of yellow, a little bit of a white stripe as well. And that is also what I heard. I think Gabe at GTAC 13 jerseys, he is very reliable when it comes to jersey scoops. He put this scoop out there on Friday afternoon, and that came after what I heard a whisper on Thursday that it looks like it's going to be something similar to what he put out. That is going to be the reverse retro jersey of the Penguins. It's going to probably come out the 19th or the 20th next week. I know some people may not like it just because that jersey is kind of, and it looks like maybe, their home jersey, but just a different logo and stuff. But, I honestly could see them doing this jersey. Remember how they did the reverse retro jerseys a couple of years ago during COVID, right? They brought back that white diagonal Pittsburgh one. Some people liked it. Some people didn't. Next year, though, they bring back the original Pittsburgh diagonal, all black. Everyone loves it. I could honestly see them doing the same thing here, bringing back this reverse retro jersey, and then they're like, okay, if this doesn't maybe sell like, they want it to, they're going to be like, okay, maybe we'll just bring back an original one next season, and then they can wear that, plus the Pittsburgh diagonal, plus their home and away jerseys. I could easily see them doing that. So, that's what I have for you all with the reverse retro jersey scoops. If I hear anything else, I will surely pass it along to you guys. But it looks like, it's going to be a nice RoboPenguin logo in the center. It's going to be kind of, that's where the black portion of the jersey is, the upper part right here. For those who are watching on YouTube, the collar, that's going to be yellow, and then below the black area going to be a white stripe and then another yellow stripe, and then the sleeves going to be black, white, yellow, and then the numbers are going to be yellow. It looks like, that's the design that he has, but the jersey, from what I've been told, is going to look really similar to that. That's the whisper that I heard. So again, wanted to pass that along to you all to end today's episode. And yes, that will do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I really appreciate all of you listening to this one. Lastly, though, it's amazing what hockey can do for the listenership of this podcast. We're basically up to 10,000 monthly downloads, barely even halfway through this month. That is 139% better compared to September 1st through September 14th. Thank you all so much for continuing to listen and continuing to support this podcast. It means the absolute world to me. Again, if any of you are going to the game on Saturday and you haven't told me yet, send me a DM on social media, leave a comment on the YouTube page. Just let me know. And if you want to meet up and talk some Penguins hockey, I will, be very glad to do that with you. So again, that will do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening. Let's go, Pens. I can't wait to watch the game on Saturday and make some observations. I'll have a full game recap episode for you all on Monday. Then we'll preview the action for next week and have 5 full episodes coming for you all starting on Monday. So that'll do it. Have a great weekend, and let's go, Pens.